Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the sophomore album from Cole Swindell called You Should Be Here. So for those of you who've been watching since the very beginning of my channel when I discuss the rise and fall of bro country in detail, you probably know that I took a bit of a complicated position surrounding the subgenre. Namely that I didn't hate it altogether. I know, I'm not sure what it was either. Maybe some of my own lingering sympathies from my own bro days. Maybe it was that even despite how stupid it could get, it played with some sincerity or production with a little bit more meat or writing with a little bit more tact, you could actually get some halfway decent music. Of course, the majority of bro country acts maybe got 1 out of 3 on a good day, and we got a whole lot of mediocrity that came out, along with a whole lot of just awful music, which I had no qualms giving the thorough thrashing that it heartily deserved. When bro country was good, I had no problem celebrating it, but when it was bad, I wasn't about to avoid an easy target. And one of the easiest was Cole Swindell, a former frat mate and merch manager for Luke Bryan, who became a songwriter and later released a debut album that I slagged as being one of the most formulaic, badly produced, and sloppily written bro country albums ever made. Until Thomas Rhett came along, Cole Swindell represented the absolute worst of bro country for me. He might not have been the most obnoxious or processed or of the most offensive writing, but he represented the numb, sterile blandness that came to saturate country radio's mindless attempt to jump onto a trend. But let's be honest here, bro country, it's effectively over at this point. It's done. And Cole Swindell now had to prove that he was more than just part of the trend. And with his lead-off single, the title track of this album that was actually a tribute to his late father, he actually convinced me to give him another chance because the song was actually really good. Sure, the percussion and production was way too synthetic for my taste, and much of the melody line reminded me way too much of Luke Bryan's Crash My Party, but the writing had enough detail to feel authentic and real, even if it was framed through a bro country lens. So, believe it or not, I actually had some real hope going into this album that we might see a more interesting, or at least introspective side of Cole Swindell. So did we get that? Well, here's the thing. I don't know if I want to call this a good bro country album. It's definitely an improvement over Cole Swindell's debut. It shows real progression across the board, to the point where he might actually be able to salvage a career at the end of this. But what it is, especially thematically, more than anything, is the last bro country album that anyone should make. There's a feeling of finality to this album, of endings and moving on, with one last nostalgia trip to end things off, but always with the knowledge that it's intended for fond memories and little else. As such, there's a part of me that's inclined to be a bit charitable to this album, and not just because it's a fair bit better than I think anyone could have reasonably expected here, because yeah, this album, kind of decent. I don't hate it at all. So how the hell did that happen? Well, the biggest part came through in the instrumentation and production. And yeah, you don't have to tell me that it's a little bit too slick and there are way too many drum machines for my personal taste. The most egregious offender being that on the Florida-Georgia line co-written Party Wasn't Over that damn near has a trap beat. That doesn't belong in country music. But I get the impression that Cole Swindell was listening to what Dierks Bentley, Brad Paisley, Kip Moore, and Dustin Lynch were doing, with a more spacious and melodic country sound decided to tilt towards that. Bring in some meatier guitar tones and pianos and some stronger riffing in order to match. Now, there still are your fair number of mixing problems. Both Flatliner and the Beautiful Drug ripoff on Up both layer their cymbals way too close, and there's an odd piece on the former that feels completely out of place, and that cymbal progression just feels kind of weird and wrong. I'm not going to deny that it doesn't have the texture that this album that I would like. That orchestral swell on Making My Way to You just does not have any weight to really connect with me. But you know what? The melodic hooks do stand out a little bit more. They don't feel as formulaic. And Cole Swindell's not afraid to let his guitars have a little bit more sizzle and texture to them, or add his bass guitar add some real foundation to these songs. What baffles me is why he bothered to use drum machines at all, when so many of these songs are going to bring in real drums and percussion anyways, and on songs like Broke Down, he sticks with real drums all the way, so why bother? And where this album completely shocked me was on No Can Left Behind, which changes up the sound completely for a neo-traditional country stomp with piano and a much meatier riff. It doesn't even sound like something I would expect Cole Swindell to make. And sure, it doesn't fit in with the rest of the album at all. It's a pretty dumb drinking song, all things considered, but at least reflects a willingness to go for something that might have some more long-term staying power in country music if Cole Swindell sticks around. When you follow it up with the acoustic tinge ballad Remember Boys, it's very much playing in the same mold as Tim McGraw's Humble and Kind. It's clear that Cole Swindell is at least planning for a future where his sound might tilt towards a more mature, more neo-traditional direction, and I got no problem with that. He's doing it pretty well. But that won't matter much if the personality is not not there. So let's talk about Cole Swindell himself. And honestly, not a lot to say, mostly because he's always been a performer with a lot of earnest passion, but not a lot of nuance. I will say this, you always get the impression that he believes what he's selling and generally comes across as pretty likable. In comparison with other B-list bro country acts, he's pretty much the anti-Tyler Farr. And while the opening track with Dierks Bentley might not be any good, not helped by Dierks Bentley actually showing up Cole Swindell both in the lyrics and delivery, telling him, don't play any Cole Swindell songs, but Dierks Bentley songs if you want to win over this girl. But it also reveals a knack for self-deprecating humor that's actually a fairly good fit for him that also comes through on No Can Left Behind. All this contributes to a performer that doesn't really have any nuance to him, but can make up with it with a lot of sincerity, providing the songwriting can come through and support it. And for the most part, the songwriting is what redeems this album for me. Now, not all of it at all. Outside of the jokes, Flatliner is pretty embarrassing, and this record can fall into generic bro country territory with the forgettable Up, Party Wasn't Over, and Stars. And I'll be the first to admit that No Can Left Behind, it's pretty damn stupid, even if it is kind of fun. But where this record finds poignancy and even a loose thematic through line is in that feeling of finality and wistful remembrance that I mentioned before. So much bro country suffered because it was self-satisfied and tepid, a party for its own sake. Hell, most of Cole Swindell's first album fell in that category. Whereas You Should Be Here, it goes in a different direction. The hookup doesn't happen and Cole Swindell's left alone on the dance floor on Middle of a Memory. He doesn't get that happy end. He's reflecting on the good times in the past on Home Game. And even Party Wasn't Over implies that he was left behind for this girl at the end of the summer. And those moments of melancholy are actually fairly well realized on the breakup on Broke Down or on the title track. Again, they can feel simplistic framed through the bro country lens, but the sentiments do ring as authentic, and that has some power to it. The song actually impressed me a fair bit with Stay Downtown, where Cole Swindell actually turns down a booty call from an ex because he knows it's just going to lead to more regrets when she comes over and leaves in the morning, a sign that that life is behind him and he's actually kind of growing up. It lends poignancy to the parties mentioned on the past on Home Game and Making My Way to You, and because I've heard these cliches driven into the ground by so much smug douchebaggery in the past, that when approached with wistful, heartfelt fondness and nostalgia, just clicks a lot better for me. Yeah, I believe these songs. In short, look, on some level I think I'm giving this record probably more credit than it deserves, really because there are too many production issues to give it a complete pass, and more than its fair share of formulaic writing. But on the other hand, as someone who's never really hated bro country and it's hoped that Cole Swindell could find some depth and nuance, well, he didn't really find that, but he found a well-framed sincerity that manages to mostly fill the void. As such, for me, I'm thinking a 6 out of 10 and a modest recommendation. Cole Swindell made the epitaph for bro country with You Should Be Here. There should be no more bro country albums after this. And with this record, he even showed a few promising places where he could be heading into next with some artistic progression. And you know what? I think I'm on board. Good job. You surprised me. Well, thanks a lot for watching. I'd like to like and subscribe. I'd be more than grateful. I got the poll up here, so even by bro country standards, what do you guys think? Do you think it managed to work? Like, do you think I'm giving him too much credit? Honestly, I think I probably am, but yeah, this album kind of connected with me. Not gonna deny that. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or any other albums coming out that you want me to take a look at, I will try to give them a listen. My schedule is still pretty jammed up at this point. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching the Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.